Welcome to Life Unrestricted.
This is your show if you're sick of living a life controlled by food and exercise rules, and if you're ready to learn how to accept yourself and enjoy the heck out of life. My gig is about body image, femininity, self-worth, and resilience. Come on, let's walk side by side as we slowly step out of restriction misery and unlock our true selves.
Your host, Merritt Boxler, is a former national radio DJ, freelance journalist, speaker, and writer with a passion to make women feel good in their bodies. This is a show brought to you live from Switzerland.
Happy New Year, radicals! 2017. Can you believe it? Here we are, holidays and the whole hoopla behind us, and a brand new year ahead. Crazy how time flies, right? A year ago, we all had no idea that we would one day be gathered here like friends. And yet, it's happening. Wonders never cease. I'm grateful for all the great discussions that are happening in our community and grateful for you. It takes one step to start a journey of 1,000 miles. And you've started that journey. The one to freeing yourself from limiting ideas about yourself and your body. You're brave, dear radical, no matter what your inner gremlin tells you all day. So let's dive into this pristine lake of 2017. It's January 2nd, so this year is practically a newborn. And how do we treat newborns? I would hope that they get treated with kindness, wouldn't you? How ironic that January has turned into what appears to be the International Month of Dieting, the month of ascetic living, with the general idea of having to repent for our bad lust for life that we might have felt at some point. In Switzerland, we call that bleak feel of January the January hole. And people have come to use this term for any feelings of depression, for lack of joy, this absence of passion that's now being replaced with that grim determination in the eyes of people who are sold to the idea that self-flagellation might somehow be the way to eventually find self-acceptance. That machine-like intent to finally exert maximum control over that body and the willingness to regiment our ways of eating and exercising. But don't be fooled, dear radicals. A perfectionistic determination is invariably fueled by feelings of inadequacy. My suggestion here is let's not get stuck in the rigidity of this well-known fight, flight, freeze mode. We are not under any actual threat. There's no need to try and suppress our appetites and to ignore our body's needs. The healthiest thing you can do for yourself at this point is not to turn to clean eating and avoid your favorite foods. The healthiest thing you can do for yourself is to renew or reconnect to your innate joy and appetite for love, for food, for art. In other words, to face that happiness really is an inside job, contrary to the common myth that it should be appearance related. If you treat yourself with kindness and care, you are much more likely to support your health than a person obsessed with counting, tracking, deprivation, and aggressive self-discipline. Breaking news. Abandoning yourself is not health promoting. And yes, it takes a remarkable amount of bravery to step out of those thinking patterns and beliefs that have been ingrained in us for ages. The aforementioned idea that self-flagellation could somehow be promoting self-acceptance. It is much more brave to learn new ways instead of following everything this diet-obsessed culture tries to sell you. So here's to you, dear listener. Here's to reflecting on your true values. What is it that makes you you? Your creativity, your desire to end social injustice, your effort to invest in yourself to become a better role model for those surrounding you, your reliability, your humor, Your sensitive nature, maybe? Instead of buying into the same predefined and neatly packaged New Year's resolutions that are based on the idea that you have to prove your worth by way of abandoning your needs, let's make January the month of extra self-kindness. We all need it now that the dieting virus is rampant and so many people are falling prey to self-imposed joyless January austerity. Let's do January differently. It deserves it. And so do we. And to kickstart a kinder attitude to yourself, here's a bouquet of different ideas of jumping into this new year. This week on the Life Unrestricted podcast, you're going to hear another woman who is changing the game and inspiring the world with her wonderful work on body kindness and health at every size. It's Rebecca Scritchfield from Washington, D.C. Rebecca is an expert on the connection between health and happiness, and she believes the foundation for a long, happy life lies in enjoyable habits. As a registered dietitian, nutritionist, a well-being coach, as well as a health and fitness specialist, Rebecca helps people create a better life with workable, interesting self-care goals through her weight-neutral body kindness practice. Rebecca is the founder of Capital Nutrition Group, co-founder of Dietitians for Body Confidence, and her very first book has just come out. It's called Body Kindness, and I am honored to be holding an advance copy in my very hands. It is a wonderful, colorful, and powerful read, highly recommendable. Rebecca has also been a spokesperson and consultant to some big food brands, and through over 100 media outlets, she has reached millions of people. And today, it will be you she reaches, dear listener. Here she is, Rebecca Scritchfield.
Well, thank you for having me. I have been a listener for some time now, and I can't believe it that I'm finally a guest.
Yeah, I've been looking forward for this conversation a lot, and I think we are at a perfect time of year to talk about some stuff that we're going to talk about. But let's start with the part that is always the most connecting one, I find, the part where we share our own stories. So I want to ask you, what is your earliest memory of being in a body?
Okay, we're starting with the positive. I like that. Mm-hmm. I can remember, gosh, it must have been first grade, elementary school for sure. And yeah, I was just in a play. There was dancing, there was sequins. And I remember being in it, but I also remember watching the video of it. And I mean, gosh, we were just cute little balls of energy, having so much fun in our bodies and dancing and singing and moving around. So that was probably one of my earliest positive memories. And I think at that time, I was still very much enjoying life and dance and my body and just happy to be alive. I think that did change for me as I got older, though.
I know that everybody says that we have some memories deep down, for some not in their active memory anymore, but we all must have had a time where we weren't self-conscious about our bodies. Just as Virgie said, she had a great body image before kindergarten and then everything went south. So it's good to hear that some women and men remember a time when they were just free and moving and having fun without feeling self-conscious. Yeah. So where did you get the message then later on that something had to be fixed?
Oh, everywhere. So I heard, I think it was messages from everywhere, but I remember I think I was around 9 years old. And I remember I was sitting around in like a church type meeting and just mind wandering. And I remember realizing that my heart was beating, and that was a really cool thing, but it was going to beat and it was going to work for me until it stopped. And I knew what that meant. And I really saw my body as a gift. I was like, wow, this is amazing. Like, I don't have to tell my heart to do anything. It's just going to do it. I don't have to tell myself to breathe. It's just going to do it. And I really became fascinated with the human body And I got this like urge, like, well, I want to take care of it. So there was an internal motivation to take care of it, but that got really twisted as I got older and was reading magazines.
So it wasn't your mom?
Probably a mix of both. So yeah, so my mom and I dieted together. We had these refrigerator magnets that I knew we were on the diet when they came out. It said a minute on the lips, a lifetime on the hips. I was like, oh, it's time to diet. Yeah. So I kind of knew what was going to be coming around, but food wise and behaviorally. And then I knew when we were off the diet, because I'd see more. Yeah, the magnets went away. And I'd see more, for lack of a better term, binge type food that would just kind of disappear really quickly. I feel like as a family, we identified as emotional eaters, but there was no identifying it as any type of a problem. And that took me years to try to figure out and disentangle from. So some of it was definitely internal. My mom never said to me that there was something wrong with my body.
Okay.
But
least,
I did have people comment on the women adult bodies in my family and say things like, see, this is what you have to look forward to. And I know it was horrible. I really don't believe that the people who said that stuff meant to be malicious. Maybe they were even meant to be jokesters, because you never know the power of words and how they can hurt you. And I really don't think there was any malice intended. But I do remember starting to fear becoming fat and fatness. And that, along with, the magazines I was subscribing to, before nutrition school, I thought everybody needed 1,200 calories a day. Like that was just what you did, eat an apple if you want to be healthy. And, the focus was fat free when I was, coming up, and food should be avoided. And
it was
models I didn't
everywhere.
look like. Yeah, everywhere.
Yeah,
everywhere.
You just learned that being a woman means that we have to watch out for what we eat, and we have to do this and that to be acceptable. We just get this modeled behavior, so we don't ever question it, right? So we just get in line and do the same, kind of.
Exactly. And I think even in my teen years, and remember, I still valued and appreciated my body. I think where it got twisted was that what I was doing to try to take care of it, underneath it was a whole bunch of fear of, well, if you don't, maybe this could happen and this is bad. And so I just think that it was that whole mix of stuff that really put me in a bit of a fear bubble of, this is what you need to do. And I was one of those ones who called it healthy. Let's be real, it wasn't healthy, but that is something that is still going on in our culture. People, mixing up diet culture advice under this veil of this is health, and it's not. And we have to just kind of shoot that down.
Yeah, I just want to eat healthy. I just want to eat clean. And this is not a diet, it's a lifestyle.
It's a lifestyle approach.
It's terrible. So did it start more or less, let's say, harmless in the beginning, like restricting something or exercising a little more, or did it become very disordered fast?
I think it went depending on my mood and what was going on with life. So after a breakup, right, I would say that, it was a really, looking back, I'm actually still friends with my ex's parents. Like, they came to my wedding. It was innocent, but my teenage heart was broken. And I went straight to blaming myself. And I don't want to say that I wanted to hurt my body, but I wanted to just escape and sleep. And I had like diet pills around. So I took too many, fell asleep, and I woke up and unintentionally got sick. And it was obviously my body's way of, helping me. Yeah. So that was a very dark time for me. But, then something like that might be like, oh, well, you gotta, the sense of control that people get. Like, you're gonna get healthy because you're gonna lose 10 pounds because that's why he dumped you. And none of that was true. But things like that, or
It seems so true at the time. It feels so true, even though it isn't.
well, it's your perception is your reality,
Right.
and you're looking for something to prove. I already had obviously low self-esteem because I wasn't confident in my body. Again, it was this mix of I want to take care of it, but the things I was doing that everybody was telling me was healthy was not healthy. And then when something bad would happen in my life, I didn't have the resilience. I didn't have the tools to regulate emotions. And I would go back to periods of emotional eating or
restricting. Emotional dieting, I call it.
Yeah. That was going to fix everything, lose weight.
Yes.
So,
I'm going to be happy and sexy and fulfilled and never sad. Exactly. We basically don't get taught to deal with emotions, or a lot of us didn't, like 30, 40 years ago. It was just, be quiet. Don't be ashamed. Don't get angry. Don't cry. I'll give you something to cry about. And you're just like stuck. And you don't really learn it. So, of course, people turn to substances or eating or dieting or exercise addiction or not exercising or drugs or whatever to kind of cope with the ickiness of life. And it really helps if we can learn at a later stage that it's icky for everybody and life is not supposed to be sunshine and roses and you're not doing something wrong. It's just a human condition. And I had always thought if I wasn't broken, then I would be feeling good and be slim all the time. And it would be effortless. And so that was a whole other misconception as well.
Right. In order to fix yourself, you needed to get skinny first and you wouldn't be fixed. Yeah. Yes. How twisted is that? That's so
and
twisted.
I really believed it. This carrot, I so chased this carrot and I really fell from the clouds when I was down to a very unhealthy weight for me or my body, and happiness couldn't have been further away. Yeah. And I was totally disappointed. Like, why is this? Why am I not? And I was getting compliments for being sick. So, I mean, I understand why we all do what we do. I have so much compassion for it because it gets reinforced everywhere.
Yeah. And you can't necessarily see someone's feelings.
No.
And there's actually one of my stories in the book is with a friend of mine. And she kind of talks about how she was able to hide what was really going on. Just get up, do your hair, put your lipstick on.
Yes,
and,
exactly.
Her way of escaping was just pretending like nothing was happening. And the image that she gave to everybody else was, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. And she really was not fine.
She didn't want to be a burden.
Well, I think probably some of that, if I had to guess, just knowing her, but then also I think was just in a type of pretend mode, just kind of like, if I just keep doing this, if I launch this new product, if I get dressed and look all fancy and get my daughter off to school, if I just keep doing all these happy things, it'll be fine. Instead of realizing that she was really hurting on the inside and facing it and dealing with it. But
and now that you say it, it's also all the weight suppressors are also pretenders. Like I always pretended that it was effortless, and I always pretended that I was belonging to all of the rest who seemed to be effortlessly skinny, but I was also pretending because I was afraid to not be included. You know what I mean? So I think it's all based on love or a lack of love or a perceived lack of love that makes us do things. So for you, was that breakup that really exacerbated things for you? You were overwhelmed with the emotions?
I think that it was, again, in that time, I didn't have a really good relationship with my body. Like I would compare a lot to my friends, like especially my legs, and it's kind of like that pretend thing, right? It's like I was on the dance line, right? Line up, kick, put your pom-poms out there. Are we all having fun? But in my head, it was like, you have the largest legs here, so there wasn't an appreciation for how my body could move like there was when I was that young girl who was just, dancing around in her little elementary school play. Yeah. It had changed to social comparisons and body bashing. And so I would have periods of, whether it was dieting with my mom or just what I was reading in magazines, and it was a clear reward for not eating. Like that was the goal. Like just try not to eat. And when you do, like drink a 50-calorie high C or something,
Yes,
and then
exactly.
try not to eat, and it was, I laugh about it now, but it was just so, I could hide it because, I feel like I was naturally a happy person. I could present happiness, but also, to look at me, I didn't look sick. Like I didn't look like I had an eating disorder. So I could just kind of coast and, like you said, get the compliments and all this stuff. But I never really gave anyone a idea that there was a problem. It was all in my head and where it could thrive. So
what you say happened to me as well. And only when I, because of a medication, dropped to even lower weight, then people started to say, ooh, what is happening? You lost weight so quickly and blah, blah, blah. But what I had to tell them is, hey guys, I've been doing this for 20 years. And only because of this medication that now I'm dropping even more weight, you recognize it. Otherwise, I could have hidden it forever because it's only the anorexic type skeletal sort of display of an illness that gets recognized.
Yeah.
But now that I know that eating disorders and disordered eating comes in all sizes and we just don't ask the right questions, or the physicians don't ask the right questions. They just check the BMI and then you're either fine or you're not. Which that pushes all my buttons.
I cannot even begin to tell you the clients, whether it's coming in and they have a weight concern, they know that I'm health at every size and all that, but they still have a weight concern, but they don't want to diet. They have a history of dieting and already they're over-exercising and under-eating. And they're just like, they think I'm off my rocker because, they're fat.
Yeah,
and I'm telling them they need to eat more, and they're like, wait a minute, what do you mean eat more? And it's like, well, you need to nourish. This is malnourishment. It's just like just hearing that has been very healing and validating for them because all the other message they get is, from their doctor. I have a client, like literally her gynecologist, she's in a compromising position, as you can imagine, like in her gown after the appointment, that as the doctor is walking away and closes the door, says, hope to see less of you next year.
Yeah, I got that as well.
Yeah, completely crushing.
Totally. And you internalize that and that's going to stay with you forever. Stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, what we did in that scenario, I'm so glad, again, she did not isolate herself. We had been working together for a couple years and she did not isolate herself. She told me, and we took steps that included contacting her GP that referred her to let her know, because, this is a GP that I knew where we share clients, and she thanked her, validated that was wrong, and that she was going to have a conversation with that doctor and also reconsider referring. And then she actually wrote a letter to the practice explaining what happened and explaining that she was not going to come back.
That's how we change it. That's how we change it. We have to raise our voices. We cannot just disappear or let it happen. We have to say something.
You have to advocate for yourself and just tell one person you trust. Tell one person you trust that wants to listen. And that is where, we need to try to reduce shame that we might feel about that conversation, because now my client she's happy that she did it. And now she has care team who will not, discriminate. But then also I was able to share it at an education conference and people in the room clapped. And then when I told her this, she felt great knowing that something good could come out of her bad experience.
It started to make sense why this had to happen.
Yeah. Well, and that's what allows you to bounce back. So kind of when you talk about like this bad thing happens and it could hurt you for who knows how long, but you can also be resilient and build resilience and bounce back from bad things. And the first step, I believe,
is talking about it.
Yeah. Just saying whatever happened, it's okay. I'm angry. I'm hurt. I'm sad. just a quick making peace, and then tell somebody you trust who can help you decide the action you want to take to make it right and to help others and to help crush diet culture. We're all going to do it together.
Yes, we can only do it together. So, but how did that develop for you? I mean, we made a big jump from being, it doesn't matter, from being concerned about your weight and slipping into unhealthy behaviors to now being a total role model for a better behavior. So what happened in those years? How dark did it get for you?
Well, I never was formally diagnosed with an eating disorder. I never had a therapist, but should. I think that probably mostly had to do with our education level and socioeconomic status. My generation is the first to have gone to college, and not even everyone in my family has gone to college. My guess is we had insurance, but isn't it very telling that I don't actually remember if we did or didn't?
Yes, I get it.
I mean, my mom is actually in therapy now and doing great, but oh my gosh, it took years to get there because there was sort of a scarlet letter, if you will, on therapy that was what you did if you were crazy, And so we got to remove the stigma from mental health as well. But so I just kind of continued to have periods of struggle and periods where I was fine. I do think that generally I was a happy person and more of an optimist. That's where I genetically generally trended. And so that I feel was very helpful in helping me to, avoid too many horrible downward spirals. But I'll tell you, if my kids go through a fraction of what I went through, I would cry. I would be so upset and disappointed. Yeah. So, but I went to college, and I think I was really able there to just focus on studies and involvement in school and in my sorority. And
no dieting talk amongst the girls.
Oh no, lots of that. Are you kidding? No, it was
right.
No, lots of all of that. I mean, that just all continued. I would say it even continued. So I majored in chemistry. I actually didn't go right into nutrition, but long story short, it was actually 9/11. Living in Washington, D.C., going through 9/11, it was a trauma.
Yes.
And I thought I was working in information technology, and I thought, okay, it's great that you can do tech and everything, but this is not what you wanted. This will never really make you happy. And I always knew I wanted to help people. I was still into nutrition and exercise. In college, one of the things I did for money is I started a wellness program and taught aerobics classes. So my professors would come to my, aerobics classes in the basement of our dorms and stuff. But so, I really did try to motivate health, but it was all still about thinness and preventing weight gain and preventing fat. It wasn't about empowerment and loving your body and appreciating your body. But even when I was in school to become a registered dietitian, they teach medical model diet culture stuff, very little training in eating disorder. I mean, it's, they teach weight loss. So I was getting more of it, when I would look at my mom and her lack of taking care of her health, I was very much more or less blaming or judging and still not really finding the real culprit. But it was after, so I was, teaching college classes. I had my practice. I was counseling. I mean, before Fitbits were out, I had the early devices. And it was let me strap this basically monitoring device, dog collar looking thing on your arm, and I'm going to watch you, and you're going to record your calories, and I'm going to watch your calorie burn. And it was all sold under motivation and get healthy. And, it was sold under this is what you need for healthy living. I think two key things happened. One was when I was honest about it, it worked for a while until it didn't work, right? Like typical dieting. And a client wouldn't be fully honest with me because they felt ashamed that they couldn't comply with what I was prescribing them. And I started to notice that. And I started to question, is this really helpful? That, and then, another traumatic event in my life was when my mom almost died and she could have killed other people. She had a heart attack when she was driving.
Oh, God.
And, she got quick medical attention, but I ended up going out there because she eventually needed to have open heart surgery. And so I went out there and I lived with them for almost a month, making meals, just helping to get the house ready. You know, having worked in a hospital, I kind of knew what was coming up and I wanted to be there for them. And that was when I really started to question, how did we get to this place? And I tell the story in full in the book, but I ended up realizing that I think the real thing to blame here is dieting. And that shifted a ton of research, attending eating disorder conferences, a ton of reading. And I found Health at Every Size and the Association for Size Diversity and Health. And it just blew my mind. And I frankly had this moment where I was like, I am doing everything wrong and I owe so many people apologies and their money back because I'm part of the problem. Yeah. And I just, enough's enough. I have to change it all. And it was very scary because try being a nutrition and fitness expert, knowing that you're in diet culture and you're about to change everything to say, I don't do diets.
It must
and
be
now
so
imagine
hard.
That's like 10 years ago, right? Like, you know, body positivity is finally having its heyday, but it was not like that 10, 12 years ago.
How did you transition?
I made sure I asked a lot of people who knew better than me. So, for example, Marsha Hudnall at Green Mountain at Fox Run, I went and visited. I stayed for a couple of weeks. I participated in the program and I was identified as an expert participant. So that was great. I studied intuitive eating under Evelyn Tribole as advanced as I could get and then continued on doing supervision. I still do supervisions with her at least once a year because she's amazing. And Intuitive Eating was such a life-changing book. So it had to do with that. And then just asking people, like, what is the right language? So instead of talking about weight management or weight loss, using the word weight concerns, you know, and that's kind of what we're seeing now in the body positivity movement, right? Like, can you want to lose weight and still be body positive? And it's like, I mean, I think yes, because you can't control your feeling of wanting to lose weight, but you can say what you will or won't do as goals, right? Like, I'm sitting with this desire to lose weight, that like a weight concern, but I want to work with somebody that can help me on my mind and my behaviors. And that takes a special kind of person. That is going to take a person who is fat positive, weight inclusive. They understand health at every size. They're using terms at least weight neutral, but they should also be using terms like weight inclusive and fat positive and all that stuff.
Totally.
That's how you know you're going to get a person who knows it, because as we talked about earlier, that sort of clean eating and it's a lifestyle. That's what we see now. Hey guys, this is body positive, you know, and it's like, no. You're hijacking a really important movement and putting the weight loss pretty red bow on it. And that is the worst. I call it diet in disguise. That is the absolute worst thing.
Even Weight Watchers do it. I mean, everybody co-opts this term. It's terrible.
It is bad. It is bad. But, you know, I will say it was a journey. And thankfully, even social media wasn't really as popular as it is now, because dietitians are coming to this movement. And it's a very confusing place because we've been taught under the medical model. I mean, I literally had to redesign everything and rewrite every word on my website. And then now if you're like in a group, you're so afraid to get something wrong because you want to be accepted in the health at every size, body positive type community. And it's like, we have to let ourselves make mistakes. You know, we can't apologize for every word. We say, hey, I'm working on this. And if somebody kind of says something to you, they're there to help you and to educate you and to challenge you and to become stronger and better, because we need every dietitian, every exercise pro, every therapist, every activist, every person we can find. We need them
we need to unite. We can't afford to go against each other. That's the beauty of the whole movement, I think. The inclusivity and people are helpful with each other. And how did it go down with your clients when you told them that you wouldn't help them lose weight if they came to you and were looking for a magic bullet and make me lose weight in the next 2 months?
So I thought business would dry up, and it actually doubled. Like, I got a wait list for the first time. And that was like That's when I knew I was on to something. I was like, holy cow. So I actually saw more of the type of people I wanted to see. I was able to work for a while with clients with eating disorders, which I, have really appreciated. I mean, clients as young as 9 years old have been clients of mine and literally coming in, doing CrossFit with dad. It was really, clients help me as much as I help them because I was able to make a difference and build a business around body positivity and well-being. And it forever changed my mindset. It helped me figure out exactly the kind of mom I want to be for my girls. So, I don't think I could ever thank or repay the people who trusted me to help them. As typical in private practice, they don't always end when they need to end. Sometimes they end sooner, and it's very difficult as a clinician to make peace with that. You wonder, well, what could I have done to keep them longer as a client? What could I have done to kind of make that transition happen? And I make peace with it by saying, I was a stop on that person's journey, and I will be there for them if they ever want to come back. And I have had people come back later to say, I always remember that you said that, and come back. I've also gotten emails from people to say how helpful the work was years later. So anywhere from a woman who ended up having triplets to a woman who was just like, I just like myself more. I'm so much happier and my body hasn't changed that much, but boy, have I stopped restricting and overeating. And so that is very helpful to get that kind of sign and feedback. So, to other people who are listening who might be clinicians, or just if you have stopped getting help and waited till it was a better time, that is A-okay on both sides, because any time is a good time to do the work. You can always re-engage and pick up exactly where you're at right now and make steps in the right direction to move yourself forward.
We're not going anywhere. Yeah.
No.
And I can only attest to how hard it is to say goodbye to the thin dream. So if I had heard it for the first time, I'd probably have gone, goodbye, Rebecca. This is the last time I'm coming to see you in your practice, because I wanted to hold on to that dream and I wanted someone to tell me that it's possible. So we just have to grieve to a certain extent and come to peace with that before we can allow more help. Yeah. And it's really hard to let that go, because we all have been on diets and we know that for a time it works. And there's always that little thing in our head that tells us, maybe I'll just try it, just one more. Maybe this one, maybe it's going to stick. Or maybe if I'm a bit harder with myself. And sadly, we are pretty good at punishing ourselves. Yeah. A lot of us are. And I became a mastermind at being merciless with myself, which, funny enough, didn't turn out well, but it worked.
Right. Well, there's something in the mindset that I think is important, and to really simplify it. And it's the idea of being able to say, I can handle it. So, for example, this is in the context of, here I am sitting with this desire of wanting to lose weight or change my body or look different. And here I am sitting here with the belief that there's something wrong with me or something broken in me. Well, our beliefs are developed based on thoughts that are repeated over and over and over again. So just being in diet culture, dealing with disordered eating, a poor body image, you're going to have beliefs like that based on all the thoughts you've been having for so long. But if you can imagine holding that in your hand and say, well, on the one hand, these are my beliefs, these are my thoughts and feelings right now. But pause to stop and think and hold out your other hand and say, well, what is in this hand? What is the alternative? What is the I can handle it approach? Because if you can make space for those negative thoughts and feelings about your body and what you should do and all that, kind of like toxic garble, if you kind of make room for it and say, okay, well, I can handle having those thoughts and feelings and those wants, but what action would I take? What would I do if I was that healthier and happier person that I want to be? What would that person do? And I think that's important because a lot of times what makes people run back to weight loss diets or diet plans and diet culture ideas is the belief of, I can't handle it.
Yeah.
And that's coming from the toxic sludge, because if you say I can handle it, here's what I'm going to do instead, guess who loses?
Yeah, diet culture.
Yeah, all those horrible thoughts and feelings that want to keep overpowering your life, that's who loses. So that is really a very, very important shift. If you can take a deep breath and just make room for these conflicted feelings. On the one hand, here's this junk. On the other hand, here's this opportunity. And try to make choices in the direction of which one do you want more? Mm-hmm. Do you want to hold on to the bad and the diet culture and all that stuff? Or do you want to go in a different direction? And that is going to mean experiencing difficulties and pain, and change is hard.
Oh, but yes, it is.
Thinking about the reward, the benefit of the reward, I get to say no to all this stuff that I've been hanging on to that's no longer helpful.
It also helps to just be aware of that fact, because for 40 years, I had been hearing these negative tapes stuck on replay in my head, and I never questioned them because it was my head, right? So it was my thoughts, so it was the truth. And no one ever told me that they all have a voice like that in their head that's pretty negatively programmed. And I find it irritating and also relieving to know that this voice is in almost every head. And sadly, that it's not going to go anywhere, and that it's also possible to speak against them, or to not follow what they tell you, or to not believe what they tell you. But this is not part of any education I ever heard about. People don't talk about that. And usually they don't question their own toxic thinking. I call it the inner gremlin. It's just there, and it scares the shit out of you. So you do what it says, which is dieting, having to lose weight, over-exercising, pull yourself together, smile, be quiet, be nice, don't be a burden, etc., etc. And if you don't question it, how do you ever break out of that? Because you think, if I'm a bit nicer, then the voice stops. Or if I'm a bit thinner, maybe the voice stops. Or if I'm not as emotional, maybe the voice stops. But it doesn't ever. It never, ever, ever stops. No matter how thin you are, no matter how quiet and peaceful and obedient you are, it's not going to go away.
Right. Well, and every time you start to make progress toward a better well-being, it gets louder.
Yeah, that's a bitch, though.
Yeah. I mean, well, it is. But that goes back to the I can handle it. So if you can anticipate, we've all been there before, right? So if you can anticipate, okay, I've thought about it. If I follow like this, I can handle it. If I think about the kind of person I want to be and set goals that are tangible actions that I know are being good to myself, that I know are self-care, will help me feel better. That's not dieting, that does not feel like a diet, right? If I can make more of those choices, I'm going to expect that voice is going to get louder. And it makes sense because that voice doesn't like it. Mm-hmm. So instead of fighting, I think it's better to just drop the rope in the tug of war and refuse to play the game.
And for a lot of us, that means gaining some weight in the process in the beginning. And that's the thing that causes the most fear. So how did you all of a sudden, quote unquote, all of a sudden, change your mind and face that fear and just let yourself live a freer life?
So I remember it was actually at Green Mountain when I really realized the visual of what was happening with me in emotional eating. Because I guess I glossed over it. But even when I was a dietitian putting everyone on diets, I was still eating emotionally. I'd have periods of I remember as I was in grad school working on my thesis, plus doing my dietetic internship in clinical and still working. And that was just crazy. Mm-hmm. It was too much. And I just take like a whole box of Frosted Mini Wheats because that was going to help me write my thesis,
Only one box?
Yeah. And just don't even bother with the milk. Let's just get the crumbs and the sugars all over your shirt and computer board. But so I would still have periods of that screw it mindset and habitually
I still do have
food.
that.
Yeah. Well, when I really took a pause and I was, learning more about mindfulness. So all that stuff definitely helped reduce the frequency. But when we were at Green Mountain, we were doing these art projects, and basically I was re-engaging with what that feeling felt like. And I drew this picture of an earthquake, and the earth opens up and I fall in. And then we needed to kind of describe what was going on, that drove us to food and everything. And essentially, like, when I felt emotions that were just a certain level of too high of intensity. So when I stopped believing I could handle it, this is just this challenge or that challenge or that challenge, I'd eventually have an emotion that was just too intense where I thought I couldn't handle it. That's what it felt like. Like I needed to do something because the ground was opening up and I was about to fall in and just be gone. Mm-hmm. So that was the visual that I kind of came to. And so I could.
Emergency.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. And of course, I knew rationally no amount of food was going to solve my problems and all that stuff. But it was when I could really see that picture and talk to that version of myself and have the rational part of me say, everything's going to be okay. I'm here. You can handle this. Like, your feelings are real and they're intense, but that visual you have, that is not real. You are going to be okay. And then I would give myself alternatives of things to do. And I mean, it would go across the board. One of my favorites was dancing to the Hairspray soundtrack, especially You Can't Stop the Beat. And I just love that song. I play it before my speaking engagements backstage. I play it when I need to like jazz myself up. And what I've learned is it doesn't make the urge to eat or something go away completely, but it reduces it from a 10 to an 8. So I know I'm getting better. And it goes back to that I can handle it. Okay, the urge was a 10 and now it's an 8. So it's getting better. So what else can I do? Can I continue on with my work and tolerate that craving, or do I need to go and do something else to keep letting myself know that it's going to be okay?
But it's also a thin line, because you could apply that and then fall into dieting, or you could. I am a person who sort of also runs away from my feeling by overexercising. So for me, sitting still causes me the most anxiety. The most. Really? Yeah. Everything can grow into a prison, not doing anything because you're afraid that you don't fit in, or being afraid of having a rest day, or being on diets, or being off limits with food. So everything can turn into a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
And the risk is, if you step out of one, then you fall into another. Then you go, okay, I don't need to, quote unquote, emotionally eat. And then you go, okay, I can hold off with my hunger. Maybe it's a sign of strength if I don't eat now. I'm just going to distract myself with a bubble bath and some exercise, and you know what I mean? So it can turn into the other side. So what I thought you really brought across in a beautiful way was in your book, like I read it as, don't fall into black and white thinking. You didn't say that out loud, but it was like, okay, I fall into black and whites all the time, and I kind of swing back and forth in my mind. So that's probably what you meant by the word body kindness, right? Find what the body needs, not falling from one fear into the next fear behavior.
Yeah, what I mean by body kindness, it really is a mindset and a philosophy for being good to yourself. And it is something that you define. For example, my kids are in preschool. They got colds. So mom and dad got colds, right? Mm-hmm. I knew that for me, body kindness meant I was not going to be exercising. And I enjoy exercise, but when you're coughing, when it's difficult to breathe, your body doesn't need movement. Maybe if you wanted to stretch as a way of body kindness, but it wasn't because I need to burn 20 calories stretching, But so it was like, I jumped into what does my body need? Of course, body kindness is movement, but it's movement when you feel healthy enough to move your body. And it's body kindness to choose not to move because your immune system needs to fight an illness and you need to recuperate and get better.
Or as long as someone doesn't have their period.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Yeah,
but it's hard to get out of the mindset because I even found it triggering to read like we need movement every day. And I'm like, maybe I should keep this up. You know what I mean? So it can I can watch myself and I can be self-aware, but I noticed toxic thoughts. Even when reading this, my inner gremlin goes, see? Keep up the fucking movement, man. You know?
Well,
it can get really harsh.
I'm glad to finally find out we could swear on this podcast. You should have told me.
Oh, man. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Well, that shit ain't right, Merritt.
Yeah. You're right.
Yeah, I really appreciate that feedback. What you are actually, I think, in a much better place than you think because you are noticing. Okay, that's awareness. We can't begin to change without awareness.
Yes.
If you remember in the book how I talk about PACT, P-A-C-T, and the P is presence. So the fact that you can say, okay, I just read Rebecca right. We need movement every day. Okay. Now, does the rational voice in your head honestly think I mean that we need to do crushing, punishing exercise every day?
No, not on a rational level.
Yeah, not on a rational level.
Because you count a walk as exercise as well.
Yeah, exactly. I count folding laundry as movement.
Yeah.
I mean, you're doing squats in that, you know? So you have the presence, you have the awareness of what's happening because you're noticing. So then the A is acceptance. No matter what is happening, it's okay. And this is where you're making space for it. You go, oh, I notice my gremlin, that little bitch, she is telling me that I need to just crush the exercise every day.
Yeah.
Okay. And even say, it's making me feel like a piece of shit. It's making me feel like a loser. That's okay. You know, you're accepting that that's happening and it's making you feel bad. No matter what is going on, it is okay. So then C is choose. And this is where
I can deal with it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's your I can handle it part.
Yeah.
On the one hand, my gremlin is making me want to go do a run right now. On the other hand, I know that that's not the way I'm taking care of myself. I know that's not good for me. I know that's not body kindness. I know that's not what I want in the long term. So on the other hand, I need to think of another choice. Maybe I put down the book and go do something that feels nurturing right now. You know, or maybe you read a positive quote. You know, there could be any number of things. But once you make a choice, then the T is to take action. So you take immediate action.
Once you're done, out of that mindset, you think? Oh, right.
Well,
okay.
Or even if the mindset is still there, it's where you drop the rope. Yeah. So you identified the thoughts. They're not making you feel good. You know what you really need to do. So let me just go do it. And that's kind of where I said with my emotional eating, go from like a 10 to an 8. It wasn't like it went away, but at least it got better. So you go and do something that does feel peaceful and nurturing and like a hug. Even if it was to email me, hey, Rebecca, I got to get this off my chest. I read something that was triggering. What did you really mean by it? You know, you get a response, you know, whatever you decide to do, you go and you take that immediate action. Don't expect the gremlin voice just to go run into its cave again because it kind of has you. It's like, oh, I got her attention. Maybe this is my chance to take power over her again. Yeah.
And triggers are everywhere. So we have to eventually learn to deal with them and to be resilient. With them. And yours was not even a real challenge because I knew right away what you meant. And I knew that my gremlin was taking this as an excuse to keep the disorder up, right?
Right.
But there are tons and millions of triggers out there every day, all the time, that we eventually need to deal with because otherwise we will always be kind of puppets. If you walk into a gym and there's a poster saying no pain, no gain, you can't just go and believe all that you've been told. That's what diet culture is built upon.
Yep. I love working with like metaphors and analogies and stuff. And one of my quick ones that I've done with my clients is just like, you know, those, I guess it's like dandelions and then they turn white and you want to pick one and just kind of like blow all the little things away. Like,
Yes.
So to imagine doing that. And so it's like you're at the gym, you see the sign. I mean, you can flip the sign off and move on,
Yeah.
or you're at the gym, you see the sign, you identify it as diet culture and just kind of take a deep breath and go, and visualize you just blowing that useless piece of crap away.
Blow up the BS.
Yeah, exactly. And just another one is like, especially when people feel like somebody else or words are just encroaching, almost like it feels like being closed off by this thing, to just almost like if you had dandruff on your shoulder and just kind of like swipe it off.
Oh, right.
So you could do that anywhere. Nobody knows what you're doing. You just kind of like somebody says something triggering and it's not the right time to confront, blah, blah, blah. Just dust your shoulders off for a second or flip your hair, and just, know what you're doing. You're like pushing that toxic crap away from you.
Stepping out of victim mentality, I think.
Exactly.
Because being a victim is not going to get us anywhere. And sometimes it seems easier to stay a victim and go say, yeah, but Rebecca said that. Yeah, but the gym poster said that. But that's not empowering. So eventually it's always better to kind of learn how to deal with what's being thrown at us out there.
Yep.
So,
and in different ways, not everybody is worth all of your best effort. True. Not everything that happens is worth all of your best effort. And it was literally kind of a joke piece about you're stranded on the road and the only thing to eat is McDonald's. What do you get? And they only asked dietitians. And I made sure that they disclosed that none of us worked for McDonald's or anything, that it was just this fun thing. And of course, they're dietitians, what my profession is known for. Oh, I'd get the orange, the cutie and, a salad. I mean, we all know McDonald's salads are not good.
No.
So my answer was basically like hot fries and a chocolate milkshake. And I just kind of went on and I got an email from a dietetic student who railed me. She said I was a disgrace to the profession. She said, how dare I? She calculated the nutrition. You recommended 96 grams of sugar. What are you trying to kill people? You should be it was crazy. Mm-hmm. Honestly, I felt empathy for her because I don't know what she's dealing with, whatever in her life. But I felt empathy for her that she felt that was the appropriate thing to do. And I thought about it, sent it to some dietitian friends of mine and, should I respond? And I never responded because I just decided, you know what? This is not my person. This is not a teachable moment for me. And this is not, I don't think I could be helpful here in engaging with this person.
No. And it would totally drain your energy and haters are going to hate anyway.
Yes. So, and I think that we all need to apply that in our lives. So when you talked about playing the victim and moving that on, it's okay to feel hurt by something, but you go through your decision making, just decide, is this something I really want to do right now? Or do I want to smile and just change the conversation, talk about anything else, or just keep walking away,
Hashtag so anyway.
Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah,
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah, I love that. So I wanted to ask you, since it's New Year's resolution, always by the end of the year and the start of the year, people are getting a million diet culture messages, and businesses want to make money, of course, by our insecurities. So it's a topic I never tire of, like diet culture and the toxic mechanisms of the whole culture and the diet industry. So can you share some thoughts about that, if people aren't aware how diet culture works and how it seeps into our brains, that we have to change stuff, especially at the New Year's? And
yeah. Well, I think a couple things. First of all, I think if you're doing the holidays right, you are truly indulging, right? And indulge just means take pleasure in. So, we enjoyed Thanksgiving feast because that's supposed to be a feast. We enjoyed making Christmas cookies together and eating them like every day. And I want to, everyone to enjoy a great New Year's. And there's no need to be restrictive over that time period, right? But you may naturally feel this desire to refresh or reboot. Just even in life, we all get reflective around New Year's about what do we want to cultivate that next year. If you have thoughts about weight or body or anything that comes up and you're feeling drawn toward dieting and all that, what I would say is focus on what that feels like. And then ask yourself, is this going to help create a better life? And that is an important question we can all ask ourselves, because it really helps you decide what matters most to you. Deep down, we all want to be happy. There's things we want to enjoy in life, even that have nothing to do with our appearance.
But don't you think that people who still very much believe that they would be happier and healthier if they were thinner or successful at dieting, quote unquote, they would answer the question with a yes. Like, well, yeah, I need to go on a diet. It's going to make my life better.
Right. Okay. So is it possible to have two conflicting feelings at the same time?
Oh, interesting.
Right? Mm-hmm. So remember, that's your belief because you've thought it for so long and you're in diet culture that that's a belief. But, you know, now we're talking about your listeners who have gotten so much help from you and all the wonderful guests you've had. So I'm thinking they're in a better place where they might feel that pull, but also genuinely their body feels like they need a reboot too, right? That would make sense just because of all this seasonal stuff you enjoyed. And that's kind of my point. There's nothing wrong with getting into some recipes that you typically enjoy that have more vegetables in them. That is not on a diet if that's what you're feeling like you're craving. You know, and that's where I think there's going to be a conflict. It's like your body might naturally just say, you know, I miss some fiber, you know, I miss some veggies, or I enjoyed the holidays and had some travel and I didn't, you know, do my joyful movement like I normally do some of the days. So I'm going to prioritize and schedule some of that. Why can't that be body kindness? And why can't that be your body's response for what you think you need?
Yeah, what
and
you're
have
describing
that
is a
nothing
kindness.
to do with diet culture. Exactly.
And not punishment.
Right. So if you're going to buy a diet book that's out, you look at the bookstore and there's body kindness sitting there and you see some other diet book and you're really thinking about buying that other diet book, that's where you have to stop and think, which one is going to help me create a better life, a more meaningful life, a happier and truly healthier life. If I know it's not about appearance and I know it's about taking care of my body and having a relationship and a good mind-body connection, then yes, absolutely. You will make body kindness choices that are in the vein of taking good care of yourself, but it's because you want to take care of this body, this house, this gift that you have, right? Kind of back to those innocent thoughts when I was 9 years old. Mm-hmm. You want to take care of that. And that healthful choice to get sleep, to roast some vegetables so that you're prepared for lunches or quick dinners, those are not diet choices if you're making them in the vein of being good to yourself and it tastes good and you enjoy that meal. But if you're like opening up your Fitbit and going on to calorie count and all that stuff, that's probably not going to create a better life because that's diet culture stuff. Totally. But, you know, a lot of times people are afraid to do healthful things if they're in the non-diet mode. It is okay to want to be a healthy person and you decide what is healthy. You decide what that looks like. So we're not labeling food as good and bad. And, you know, we're going down the path of this is what I think body kindness looks to me like this week. You know, I want to get my sleep. I want to prepare some balanced meals. I want to do something fun with my family. Because you're part of diet culture, you're trying to disentangle yourself. And a lot of diet culture, like we talked about earlier, it is all about, oh, I'm just going to say it's a lifestyle and not a diet. But it is. So if weight loss is a promised goal, run the other way.
Yeah. So I think what you're saying is totally making sense if there's the foundation that you know how diet culture and diet industry stuff works. Yeah. And that none of us ever, as a kid, believed that wrinkles were a bad thing. Now we're all buying wrinkle cream. And who's happy for that? I mean, a whole industry is happy for that. A whole industry is happy to sell you diet pills. A whole industry is super happy that people are becoming obsessed with a Fitbit. And I always think back, why is this even necessary? There was once a time when we all knew when we were hungry, what we were hungry for. We didn't need anyone to be controlled by a thing that counted our steps. And if we are allowed to feel good that day or not, we made it up to the scale or the Fitbit or whatever. So we totally gave our power away and we let others decide whether we are enough or not. And that an insanely profitable industry is rubbing their hands. The more insecure we are, the more stuff they're going to sell to us. The more uglier we think we are with wrinkles, the more cream we're going to buy. The uglier we think, quote unquote, fat bodies are, the harder we're going to try, the more stuff we're going to buy. And I think we have to say that we are part of what we are part of. Mm-hmm. And if this foundation is lacking and you don't have the media literacy or no one told you how this whole thing works, then it's a lot harder to step on your beautiful pillars that you kind of set for us, the love and connection and care, that we can even accept that we are allowed to be kind to ourselves. That's news.
I know.
Yeah. You know what I mean? So it needs the first step. We need to, again, be present and aware. What's being thrown at me here? Who is making a profit of this? Do I want to play along or not? So you can apply all your packed steps with it as well. Exactly. You know what I mean? It works for a lot of things. Yeah.
And you mentioned media literacy. So a few tips and recommendations to give. Jean Kilbourne, she's amazing. You can see Killing Us Softly 4. At least the trailer, you might be able to find it on Netflix or Hulu or something.
Or even YouTube. I saw it on YouTube.
Okay. Yeah, that is great. Misrepresentation is great. The Illusionists is great. So any of those will
that
really
made us thin also.
Yes. So good. Right. And so if you have a little bit of extra time before you're going back to work, or just put it on your to-do list, surround yourself with people and messages that are more in line of who you're trying to be, and cleanse yourself of the stuff that you're not. So unsubscribe from magazines that really don't do anything for you. Stop following blogs and social media that really make you feel bad, and put yourself in the best environment you can, even though we're all here in a big diet culture swamp together. We can kind of find these little life rafts and stay connected and support ourselves and each other with the types of things that we need to be strong. So this is your chance to break the chain, be in the world and also build strength and resilience and confidence and self-compassion, because I think that a lot of what gets in the way of everybody having a really happy and healthy life and even a productive life, is when we waste so much time living in our heads instead of, studying, pursuing interests, engaging in things that matter to us. That's where you really learn and grow, and that can impact what you study in college and your career and the difference you can make in the world. And I just want to help, my kids and anyone else get what it is they want out of their life and kind of end this battle with yourself.
Was that part of the reason why you wrote the book?
The short version is that body kindness is not the idea that I originally sold to the publisher. There's a little part in the book where I talk about taking happy hours for yourself. And that actually was what the whole book was supposed to be about. I hadn't yet discovered body kindness, to be honest. What happened was when I had my second child, I kind of you had asked before about times in your life where you kind of downward spiraled. This was another time, and, juggling two young kids. Oh yeah. That whole thing. I mean, pinching in the mirror, what really happened, my husband called me out, he's looking down at our dinner plates And he sees that like it's pasta night and I have very little pasta, very little food, and I'm nursing. And he's like, and he just called me out. He said,
Wow.
what are you doing? He's like, I know you know better. He's like, I cannot fix for you whatever's going on in your head, but I know you know better. And he's like, you've got to do what you need to do to be good to yourself, and what I basically wrote was a checklist, which ended up becoming the Body Kindness Manifesto in the book. Mm-hmm. Just kind of like guidelines for beliefs, like I'm allowed to not have to work on everything at once, I don't have to go to extremes to be healthy. And I really envisioned like I was helping a client, but really I was helping myself. It was really a journey in helping myself first. And that's why it reads like it's kind of part memoir. There are some personal stories in there and there's client stories. It's
everything. The book is everything in one piece, and it's very colorful. And what I wanted to tell you when I got it, the first thing I thought was like my hands love to touch it. Because there are so many pocketbooks that are just regular pocketbooks, nothing against them. But this has a texture about it. And I'm a very tactile person. So I really love just touching it and then opening it up. It's really tempting to read because it's colorful. There are drawings inside, and stuff is highlighted, and you have these little chapters that you call spiral up. Mm-hmm. So how can we get into a spiral that leads kind of upwards instead of, So it was all just, you can jump around in the book. And it just always catches you. So I really loved it.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And, that I think is my big dream, is to help people no matter where they're at, and really just know that there is a much better way to get healthier and happier. And really it's like freedom, freedom from diets. If that's what you're looking for, this is going to help you do in at least some way, because it helps you just disentangle from that environment that we're in and start getting connected with the choices that you want to make, because you're trying to be good to yourself. And that's personal. That's why this book is not prescriptive. The only prescription, I think, but if there is one rule, it's don't set a weight loss goal, and I say that like, even if you have weight concerns, setting weight goals are going to be distracting. They're going to distract from everything that you really need to do in the book.
And they occupy your mental space.
Yeah. But the rest, there's structure. There's absolutely structure. There's ideas, there's suggestions, but there's also a lot of flexibility. And just show that it's not, one size fits all. And
it's a book of invitations.
Yes.
Let's call it that way, right?
Yes. Very good.
And
very good.
You dedicated a chapter to how we can become who we want to be. How would you tell my listeners, if they wonder how we can connect to the core of who we really are, what would you tell them?
Yeah. Well, I think that it's a great time of year to do some values-based reflection and work. And because that's what it is. It's about aligning your goals with your values. So there's some guides in the book for how you can do that, but it's really about what matters to you. So we all have to do a little bit of values work. And so the Body Kindness is directed at health-related values, but everything intersects. We're not a bunch of silos. So values you have about the kind of person you want to be in relationships is going to impact how you take care of yourself too.
I really love the chapter because we have to stop and think about what our values are and if we are living true to them or living true to diet culture, let's say. And it's very helpful to have these questions on a page and, the invitation to ask some deeper questions and really find out where's that wild, free soul inside of me. Yep. We can reconnect to that, and that makes us probably more empowered to speak our minds, to take up space, to be ourselves and not trying to be like everyone else because there's only one you.
Yeah, you're reminding me of the whole idea of needing to befriend yourself. We all could use that.
Yeah. And what you pointed out a lot is the pillars: love, connection, and care.
Yeah.
Like the first thought of my inner gremlin was the audacity. This is much too kind. You know what I mean? But like, wow, how about that? Why don't we put our thinking on top of these pillars instead of punishment and trying harder and having to fit in? Yeah. So it's really lovely. And you say that compassion is really important. And I think it's a good time of year, like the start of the year, where we have to be compassionate with ourselves, because right now we might feel fragile because everybody around us is talking about stuff that isn't helpful. Yeah. And instead of either blindly following or hating on ourselves for doubting and self-criticizing, it always helps to be more compassionate. And I think we can't get enough reminders.
Yeah, that. And even if you do feel guilty from something that happened over the holidays that you regret now, like, it's okay. So if you regret the way you treated your body, and now you're thinking, oh, well, it's too hard to be nice to myself, and I need to do something diety instead, or, or I don't deserve body kindness or something like that, I would then encourage you to remember to make space for the guilt. It's okay to feel bad. We are humans and we make mistakes all the time. But the real question then becomes, how would I treat myself if I was thinking about somebody I loved?
Exactly.
Maybe you're in that state right now where it's like, I just don't love myself right now. So this is hard. Think about somebody you do love. Cultivate a vision. Let that person be your muse. This is what I would tell this person. This is what I would want this person to do. And then be brave and give yourself the courage to just start treating yourself like you would that person. And self-compassion is a practice like everything else. But you can do self-compassion even when your gremlins are saying, no, that's BS. You don't deserve that. You can do it.
I think we can all take that one to heart. So if people want to find out more about you and your book and everything you have to offer, which is a lot, how can they find you?
So the best place is to go to bodykindnessbook.com. And from there, you can get started right away, even before you have the book. You can get a free digital training, and it is a training on the 5 health rules to break right away. It comes with a free electronic working guide and also a sample chapter from the book and one of my clients' favorite tools, which is a health and happiness journal. So it's a paper-based journal that guides real things to track. So no calories, no minutes of exercise or things like that. It's much more almost kind of quick and easy ways that you can check in with how you're doing on your body kindness journey. So that's all at the website. And then there's videos and lots of social things that you can get to from there.
Wonderful. So that's bodykindnessbook.com. I will put it in the show notes, of course. And my last question to you, Rebecca, is what would you like to be remembered for? It's a juicy one, I know.
Yes. I would like to be remembered as a dietitian who helped reshape the field.
I want to thank you for all of your passion that you have brought into our conversation today and into your work. And I love your book, and I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
This was today's dose of badassery from Life Unrestricted. Find the show notes with links to everything we mentioned in this episode over at lifeunrestricted.org. And if this show is making you feel good, awesome. Make sure to subscribe and please let others feel good too. By leaving a 5-star review on iTunes, you'll help make this show more visible and therefore more accessible for others. You're the best. Thanks.